At Eurovision, there is one score more famous than any other.
0 points.
0 points.
0 points. 0 points.
Since the year 2000, 29 songs have achieved this questionable feat, whether in the semi-finals or in the final. Some of them are iconic, some of them are awful, and some of them were absolutely robbed. If there is one thing that I've gotten really good at on this channel, it's ranking things. So today we're going to put every single null point in Eurovision since 2000 on a tier list. We've covered some of these before on the last places ranking or on the worst songs of the 2020s ranking, but we will revisit and re-rank those and add a whole load of very questionable friends to the shelf alongside them. Quickly before we start, make sure to like the video, make sure to subscribe to the channel if you enjoy it, and you can find my socials and my details on how to support me financially in the description as well. Now let's get on with it. To be clear, in order to qualify for this video, you have to either score 0 points with the jury or the televote in either the semi-final or the final. For pre-2016, when the system was different, you have to score 0 points overall. I've randomized the order of these, so I have no idea what we're going to be starting with. Oh, are you fucking kidding me? Love's not enough. I need your trust. Much like the Garg meme or herpes, this one just keeps coming back. I have previously discussed this, the second worst war crime committed by the UK in 2003, at great length. But sometimes it's worth revisiting the past to ensure that you never repeat it. That said, as you're going to find out in this video, we've repeated it several times since 2003. Rather than focusing on the low-hanging fruit here, which is the absolutely diabolical vocals that are massively out of tune, and the one arm up, one arm down fashion, I want to reflect on just how awful this was for Gemini's career overall. Imagine a single performance that is so unbearably bad that it makes your record label cancel your album and drop you. They then split up as a duo as a result. These two made more money from benefit fraud than they did from the music industry. Ultimately, Cry Baby is the kind of entry that you never wash off. The UK will have to bear this cross forever. It is a constant weight around our necks, and one which was entirely self-inflicted. Even in a terrible era for the contest, this one distinguished itself as one of the very worst, and it deserved the 0 points that it got. Let's put this in F tier where it belongs and move on. Unbelievably, there are actually songs I hate even more than this on the tier list. Next, we're going way forward to Spain and Blas Canto from 2021 with his song Voy a quedarme. Voy a quedarme, prometo quererte más que ayer. Blas Canto was one of the many artists carried over from 2020 to 2021. His entry from 2020, Universo, wasn't universally loved, but for me, I really enjoyed it. It was my 7th most played song of 2020, and I was actually pretty optimistic for what Blas might bring in 2021. Unfortunately, what we ended up with was much, much worse. This is the first of a few entries from 2021 that we're going to see in this video from artists that were carried over from the previous year. In pretty much every case, the same artist was selected in 2020 with a better song, but once the broadcaster pledged to give that artist their chance on the Eurovision stage, it meant they were basically stuck with whatever that artist came back with the following year. In some cases, that really worked. For example, John's Tears from Switzerland. But in this case, and in others, it really didn't. Voy a quedarme is simply extremely boring. In fact, it's probably one of the most uneventful Eurovision songs of recent years. Blas does have a really nice voice, and that does come through, but if the words Nothing Burger were ever designed to apply to a song, it's this one. These kinds of ballads need to be so special to capture the imagination at Eurovision, and this one very much didn't. It feels like it's gotten stuck on the fence between being a slow emotional ballad and being a powerful uplifting ballad, and it just can't quite decide where it wants to go. Also, for reasons that are unclear, there's a giant inflatable moon just kind of hanging around in the background on stage. I like Blas's voice, like I said, and this song is by no means terrible. Instead, this is just dull. For that reason, I think this has to go in D tier, just because nobody has listened to this willingly for half a decade now. Next up is a more recent British trauma in the form of 2024, which was Ollie Alexander with his song Dizzy. This song's story arc can essentially be summed up by this tweet. Ollie Alexander showed up with his multi-dimensional saw bathroom, delivered a genuinely innovative and extremely homoerotic performance on stage, dropped a solid 4 out of 10 vocal performance, and then died as soon as we got to the public voting sequence. This is a bit of a strange one for me. On one hand, I remember it quite fondly, and I find it visually so impressive. At the same time, I absolutely understand why this got 0 points from the public. This hit a lot of technical marks correctly, and I think it's honestly one of the most interesting stagings we've had in some years. Unfortunately, the public displayed the same patterns that we later saw with Gojo and Erika Vickman this year. Sexuality in the contest is acceptable to a point, but once you cross a certain line, it seems to turn voters off. It wouldn't surprise me at all if that line is a lot closer when you're either doing something which is vaguely homosexual in any way, or a woman. Sexuality of all kinds has been part of Eurovision as long as I've been watching it, so to be honest, this doesn't really faze me. And it doesn't really affect my feelings towards the song as a result. The thing is, those feelings are still... don't get me wrong, we're light years ahead of the kinds of things that the UK was sending before 2022. But it just doesn't quite hit in the way I would have wanted it to, and it lacked a punch that it really needed. It's definitely listenable, and I streamed this a fair amount in the first half of 2024. But it wasn't hugely memorable or interesting, so its appearance on this list doesn't really surprise me. I'm going to put it in C tier for now, nonetheless. Next up is one from 2025 and Switzerland. That was Zoe May with her song Voyage. I promise you that this list is completely random, but it's actually very fitting that we talk about this immediately after Dizzy. That's because they had the same staging director. That means this one person managed to bag 2 zeros with 2 radically different stagings in 2 years. I'll repeat what I have already said a few times since the contest this year for this one, which is how on earth did this song end up on this list? What was it that Europe was thinking? And what did they want Switzerland to do here? This is one of the most beautiful songs in Eurovision, not just in this year, but in recent years overall. And while I liked it but didn't love it before the contest, when I saw that live performance, I thought it was amazing, and I wasn't the only one to say it might win. It's also unfortunate for the aforementioned stage director that this one ended up where it did, because I genuinely thought that that staging was genius. Pretty much the universal wisdom among all Eurovision fans and pundits was that this staging massively elevated the song and brought it alive. I'm glad at the very least that the juries did recognise how good this was. There is only one place for this to go, and that has to be into S tier. I'm going to remember this as one of the highlights of Eurovision 2025, even if it didn't get the result from the public that it deserved. Israel from 2019 is next, and that was Kobi Marimi with his song Home.
You pulled my heart, I took it made me someone.
This is a song so spectacularly dull that I had forgotten what it sounded like altogether until I went back to listen to it for this video. There's a very specific subset of songs in this video of complete nothing burger host entry ballads that do terribly and would never have qualified had they not been the host entry. This is one of them. The main oddity here is that it actually did receive points from both the public and the juries on the night of the show. It was only afterwards that Twitter user EuroBruno managed to work out how the Belarusian jury results were calculated after their original jury was disqualified. It turned out they had been calculated back to front by accident. That means Israel, despite coming last with that jury, received 12 points instead of 0. And that was the only points they received from the entire jury vote. The result was corrected by the EBU, so now the results read correctly and show Israel from 2019 receiving 0 with the juries. This is just a total snooze fest and everybody knows it. Kobi can sing well enough, so I'm going to keep this out of F tier and put it into D, but it's only by the skin of his teeth. Let's move on. Austria 2015 is next, and that is the Maki Makis with their song I Am Yours. This is fitting to have next, since we're on the topic of no-hoper entries that were sent by host nations and therefore ended up in the final anyway. We have no shortage of long-haired dudes singing nothing burger ballads with more than a hint of cursive about them. And this is essentially the final boss of that particular subcategory. This did, of course, have one memorable moment, which was the burning piano. It's kind of funny to me how a song that made 0 impact gave us one of the most iconic staging gimmicks of the entire 2010s. That was all it contributed to the contest's history though, because the second this finished, I basically forgot all about it. There is a pattern emerging in this video slightly now where you have a lot of songs that aren't necessarily awful, but there's just nothing interesting about them either. And as a result, they're just simply forgotten. This is the ultimate #1 most reliable path to getting 0 points in the contest. Simply be fine. Not great, not terrible, just fine. That's where this is, and for that, it's going to go into C tier. I wouldn't be aggrieved if I heard this song on the radio or somewhere in the background, but I remain unconvinced that anybody has ever listened to this by choice. We're going back to 2017 now, and Malta. That was Claudia Faniello with Breathlessly.
Breathlessly, I'll be watching you.
Claudia Faniello has a really beautiful voice. She also has an extremely boring song. One thing I noticed when I put this video together is that there are quite a few songs that are iconic in one way or another. Either they were considered robbed cult classics, or were total garbage fires on a level so high that they were seared into our memory. Gemini, that one's for you. This one does not fit into that category. This is one of those Eurovision songs, much like the Maki Makis, that just seems to disappear from collective memory. I don't remember ever hearing anything about this song or this artist. And I don't remember seeing it live either, which I did because the semi-final 2 family rehearsal in 2017 was the first Eurovision show that I ever saw live. I literally have that entire show etched on my memory as a dream fulfilled and one of the happiest moments of my life. And yet, I still have zero recollection of this whatsoever. For a nice vocal, I'm going to give Claudia C tier. But that is being exceptionally generous. Let's just move on. We're back in 2021 again now with the Czech Republic. That was Benny Cristo with his song, Oh My God.
Honestly, don't care. I'm happy with her. Try to make you smile for a while now.
This song is actually one of my favorite studio versions of all time in the contest. I seriously loved this song from the very first moment I heard it, and I was so excited to see what Benny might produce on stage. Unfortunately, he pulled an absolute disaster class of a performance, and as a result, we ended up in this position. I seriously don't understand how this went so badly wrong in the live show. Usually, I would never suggest this about an artist, but it really felt like his heart just wasn't in it. And he wasn't super invested in the contest by the time 2021 rolled around. I can't help but wonder whether this was the case for a few artists that year who'd waited 18 months for this show to finally come. Overall, as much of a banger as this song is, I really can't rank it that high given what an absolute nightmare the live performance was. So as a result, it's going to stay in B tier and stay firmly as one of my most played songs of 2021. It's a shame really, but we must move on. It's Romania from 2023 next, which was Theodor Andre with his song DGT. Poor Theodor Andre. Having won the Romanian selection at the age of 18, he was sent to Eurovision with essentially nothing but a dream. In his own words, the Romanian broadcaster turned that dream into a nightmare. His stage show and how the song was presented were decided exclusively by the delegation with no input from Theodor whatsoever. They tore up what he himself had done for the national final and started again from scratch. They even threatened him and his family after he self-funded a music video for the song himself. What he ended up with at the contest was a total disaster. Whoever thought that these visuals were a good idea should probably be arrested and banned from doing anything creative ever again. For some reason, they also made Theodor do the first minute of the song acoustic, which just made everything feel even more disjointed and amateurish than it already was. It's honestly kind of sad that this ended up like this, because basically none of it was Theodor's fault. He's just a kid who wrote a song before a bunch of TV execs repeatedly steamrolled him for no good reason. How it turned out is absolutely terrible, and I do have to put it into F tier. But let me make it clear that any and all discussed here is reserved exclusively for the broadcaster and not for Theodor. He deserved so much better. It's the Czech Republic again, this time from 2016 next. That was Gabriela Gunčíková with her song I Stand. If the Czech Republic were going to write a villain origin story after the robberies of 2024 and 2025, I'd suggest that they start it with a prelude in 2016, because a 0 from the public for this is absolutely outrageous. I have a real soft spot for I Stand, and not just because me and Gabriela almost share a name. It's not revolutionary, I get that, but it's a powerful ballad, it's performed well, and it feels really deeply sincere. I remember thinking in 2016 that this could do really, really well, and honestly, when I heard that score, my heart did break a little bit. At the same time, I don't think we should let that result overshadow the significance of this result for the Czech Republic at the contest. That's because this was the first time that they had ever made it to the final, having previously never finished higher than 13th in a semi. As well as that, it was the beginning of a much stronger era for them in the contest. In my opinion, this is one of the strongest songs of this video, and it's one that has remained close to my heart. For that reason, it's going into A tier for now. Next, I'm re-traumatizing myself again with James Newman from the United Kingdom in 2021 with his song Embers.
Light up the road.
Let's just get through this quick because you already know where this is going. I previously chose this song as the worst Eurovision song of the decade so far. The singing is abysmal. The dancing is abysmal. The staging is abysmal. The polystyrene trumpets are abysmal. The result was abysmal. Everything about this was abysmal. The only, and I mean only, silver lining of this is that it clearly made the BBC seriously shake up the way they approached the contest. So in some ways, maybe James Newman was what we needed in order to have Sam Ryder. I just really wish we didn't have to go through this in order to get to that point. This is the greatest abomination among stiff competition that we have sent to the contest since Gemini in 2003. If there was a tier below F tier, it would probably go there. There isn't time for that this time around though, so I'm just going to put James in F where he belongs. Staying in 2021, it's the host country from that year, the Netherlands. That was Django McCroy with his song Birth of a New Age.
Skin as rich as a starlit night. Your rhythm is rebellion.
When the Dutch selected Grow by Django McCroy in 2020, I was really excited and I genuinely thought they could mount another challenge high up the scoreboard. Unfortunately, much like with Blas Canto and James Newman, the follow-up effort was not as impactful as the original. That said, in my opinion, this offered a lot more than either of those two did. Birth of a New Age was originally written as a poem by Django in response to the Black Lives Matter protests that took place in 2020. It touches on his Surinamese heritage as well as resistance to oppression. The centerpiece of this song is a sentence written in Sranan-Tongo, which is a Creole language from Suriname, and it literally translates to "You won't break me." The irony of this song really is that it's about liberation from oppression, while simultaneously being subject to one of the most ignorant jokes of the modern era of the contest. That powerful message that this song has was denigrated by idiots who thought it was funny that it sounded a bit like he was saying broccoli. For me personally, I quite enjoyed this. It's not a song I really go back to all that much, but it was unique and it did stick out. That's a lot more than you can say for a lot of songs in this video. For that reason, B tier is where it's going to be going for now. Next up, it's one that I know Spanish fans will have been dreading. That's Manel Navarro, who represented the country in 2017 with his song Do It For Your Lover.
Just do it for your lover. Do it for your lover. Do it for your lover, baby.
If nothing else, Manel Navarro did one thing very well. He delivered an absolute masterclass in how to not give one single shit at any stage of your Eurovision participation, delivering a song that clearly had no effort put into it, sleepwalking his way to the contest, dropping a solid 1 out of 10 energy level for the entire performance, and then donning a shit-eating grin and dropping one of the most famous bum notes in Eurovision history. Unsurprisingly, all of this led to him getting an egg from the jury, and he was saved from a double zero by 5 televoting points, all of which came from Portugal. It takes a serious level of disaster to become one of the all-time nightmare performances at Eurovision. You have to match or outclass Gemini and James Newman and the endless line of Germans and Brits who make up this particular field. And yet, Manel emerges head and shoulders further into the shit than basically anyone else. He simply did not care at all and sleptwalked his way into this particular Hall of Fame. As much as I respect this incredible level of not caring, I have to put this rooted to the bottom of F tier because it is truly rotten beyond belief. Next up is one of the oldest songs on this list, and that's from 2004 and Switzerland. That was Piero and the Music Stars with their song Celebrate.
Celebrate, oh celebrate, everybody celebrate.
Does anyone want to have a go at what on earth is happening here? I genuinely don't think there was one single rehearsal for this. There doesn't seem to be any kind of choreography, and the backing singers and dancers seem to essentially just be doing whatever they want. I refuse to believe that this took more than 10 minutes to write and produce, because it's literally the same beat and the same 3 chords for the whole song. 3/4 of the lyrics in the chorus are either the words clap your hands or celebrate. At one point, he literally hits himself in the face with his own microphone. Evidently, there wasn't much money left in the budget to do costumes either, because you'd be forgiven for thinking that every member of the group had simply walked in off the street. What is truly extraordinary to me is that this song won a national selection in order to get to Eurovision. There were 11 songs that were apparently even worse than this one. They all lost to a man who held a microphone too far away from his face during the big note, and as a result meant we couldn't even hear it.
Clap your hands, oh, clap your hands. Everybody just clap your hands.
This is a bizarre fever dream that I had never encountered before writing this video. Hopefully, I will now never see it again either. It's F tier. Let's rapidly move on. After a few songs in a row that were so stunningly bad and so egregious that they somehow become memorable, we're now back to plain old dull in the form of Malik Harris and rock stars representing Germany in 2022.
We used to be the rock stars. Never thought of no harm till this thing we call lifestyle.
I need to get something off my chest, and I hid this from you in order to not ruin it for anybody who actually enjoys this. For years, every time I have heard this song, I have heard Teenage Life by Daz Sampson in my head instead. For that reason, may I present to you the worst thing ever. This has obviously had a serious negative impact on my impression of the song. That said, it's still a lot better than a lot of things on this list. What essentially saves it a little bit is that it's at least lyrically okay. And the rap section is kind of fine, I guess. That said, I will never, ever be liberated of the association that this song has in my head. I'm putting it into C tier, and I will now be running from it as much as I possibly can. Let's move on. It's going to be Iceland from 2018 next. That was Ari Olafsson with his song, Our Choice. Sometimes a song is such a non-event that you can listen back to it 10 times and still find yourself with nothing to say. That is the situation that I'm in with this song. Ari Olafsson served us something so bland that it made Bigger Than Us by Michael Rice look interesting. The only thing it really has going for it is that Ari does have a really nice voice, and he was a student at a prestigious music school in London at the time of his participation. Unfortunately, no amount of vocal talent is going to make up for the fact that this is a low-tier Disney ripoff with pretty much nothing about it that is in any way interesting or memorable. And it has the standard vapid lyrics that come with that genre as well. Please don't come to Eurovision with anything along the lines of, if somehow we could ease our pain, together we can make a change. Have some creativity. I don't understand what the point of this entry was or how it made any sense in the context of Ari's still budding career. It avoids F tier because he is talented and ultimately it's not awful, but it can't go much further above, so it's going to go into D tier. Ultimately, I doubt Ari would be particularly bothered by this, because if Instagram is anything to go by, he's had a pretty successful career in musical theatre ever since. It's 2023 and San Marino next. That was Peaked Jacks with the song Like an Animal. This song is the musical equivalent of a 40-year-old man hanging out in a student bar and hitting on 19-year-old girls. As a result, this is one of the songs I hold more in contempt than practically any other in the contest. We've talked about this before in the Worst Songs of the Decade video, and I stand by everything I said. Firstly, the lyrics are really creepy, and if you ever are trying to impress someone at a bar or a club, let me give you this advice for free. Do not tell them that you can smell them like an animal. Beyond that, the chorus of this is just abysmal musically. The grating, yelling vocal over an amateurish hook is just about as cursed a combination as you're going to find. And that vocal then turns into a nightmare all by itself when we get to the bridge. Sometimes it would have been better to just not bother, and this is one of those times. F tier is almost too good for this. Next is another entry from 2025, and that's Mama Gama from Azerbaijan with their song Run With You.
Into the stars, can't get enough so far. You made me feel brand new.
There are truly extraordinary contrasts in this video between the highs and the lows, and sometimes that's true within 1 year. On one end of the 2025 scale, we have Zoe May and Voyage, which was a beautiful song, and it's very deservedly at the top of this list. On the other hand, we have whatever this is. Some of you may be protesting the fact that this didn't get 0 points, and in a sense you're right in that it did receive 7. Unfortunately, they all came from San Marino, and they use a jury rather than a public vote in the semi-final. So this did in fact receive 0 from the European public. That gives me another chance to reflect on Mr. Squeaky's 3 minutes of horror. The song itself is honestly not that bad in the studio version, but the live is one of the weirdest 3-minute fever dreams that I've had in years. I just don't know how everyone involved with this project listened to this vocal live and thought it would be a good idea. And they really should have known before it was selected that this was going to go badly wrong. On that basis, we're putting it in F tier as well. So far, it's been a pretty rough ride, and those lower tiers in the tier list are looking pretty full. I promise you there are some better things to come in this video. Unfortunately, those better things have not arrived yet. Next is 2019, Sisters from Germany with their song, Sister. I do not understand why this song exists, why the German broadcaster thought it would be a good idea to wildcard it into their national final without going through the route that everybody else had to go through, and why the juries and the public in the selection both thought that this was the best option. This is despite the fact there were multiple credible options in the form of Ali Ryan and Lily Among Clouds, which would have done a much better job at the contest. The fact that Lily Among Clouds' song from that year is one of my favourite national selection songs of all time only makes me angrier about this. These two are not even sisters. This is a vapid, meaningless song with absolutely zero authenticity or real meaning behind it. And it had zero chance of getting anywhere at the contest either. This, of course, makes it the perfect German Eurovision entry. Amid stiff competition, this is probably the second worst entry that Germany has sent to the contest in the last 15 years. For that reason, it deserves its place in F tier. That may leave you asking, what's the worst German entry of the last 15 years? Well, that one is easy. Jendrik from 2021 with his song, I Don't Feel Hate.
I don't feel hate, I just feel sorry.
I certainly do, and I'm going to refuse to talk about this again. Kill it with fire, put it in F tier, get out of my sight, never come back. After a few deep breaths, now it's time for 2009 and the Czech Republic. That was Gypsy.cz with their song Aven Romale.
If you really wanna understand, just sing it with me.
After 4 F tiers in a row, we are going to rise up slightly with one of my earliest Eurovision memories. 2009 was the first contest that I watched in full, and this song was second in the first semi-final in terms of running order. I vividly remember seeing this for the first time, and as a result, I have a bit of a soft spot for it. This result was so bad that the Czechs gave up on Eurovision for 5 years afterwards and only came back in 2015. But to be honest, I have never hated this, and I still don't mind it. Think about the amount of generic, uninteresting slop in this video so far that we have been repeatedly throwing into F tier. At the very least, this is interesting, it's different, and it's risky. As it turns out, it was way too risky. That said, it is probably about as close as we're ever going to get to having something klezmer-ish in the contest. I am a bit of a sucker for that kind of music. Between all of this and my personal good memories, I'm going to put it higher than the last few songs into C tier. Honestly, if this was in the new system, it'd probably pick up a few points. It's another song from 2022 next in the form of Switzerland. That was Marius Bear with his song Boys Do Cry. Marius Bear is very lucky that he participated in the contest in 2022. That's because that was the last year that juries voted in the semi-finals. He only managed to score 11 points from the public, and had this been 2023 to 2025, he would have failed to qualify. Instead, his place would have been taken by Ronela Hajati from Albania, who would have had another chance on Saturday night to yell tunelessly at us. Rather than that though, we got something that I actually think is better than a lot of people think, despite the fact that this seems to have a very negative image in the Eurovision fandom. This is a sweet, if slightly platitudey song that felt like it was performed in a pretty sincere manner. And while I don't find myself going back to it very often, I thought it was among the better ones of 2022 in this respect. I also do have to declare a personal bias here. I bumped into Marius Bear at the Eurovillage in 2022, and he was genuinely one of the most lovely people who I met that entire week. He literally stood and had conversations with my friends and I for a full 15 minutes. Ironically, while that very same Ronela Hajati was performing on stage 15 meters away. Overall, I'm going to go against the grain here and put this way up in B tier. Some people will doubtless think that this is ridiculously high, but based on my own experience of Marius and this song, it felt that it was a genuine song performed well by an artist who was every bit as genuine as well. For that reason, there's part of me that wants to recognize that. Next is 2017 and San Marino. That was Valentina Monetta and Jimmy Wilson with the song Spirit of the Night.
It's the spirit of the night, spirit of the night, burning less than apples fire.
This very nearly did the impossible by achieving the 0-0 that to date only James Newman has managed. Luckily, the great arbiters of musical taste, Germany, gave it a single, solitary televote point, so it avoided that fate. I am one of the few people who can say the following. Firstly, that I have seen this song live, and secondly, that I have Jimmy Wilson on my Facebook friends list. I do not remember how this happened, but I am more than fine with it. This is just about the most camp thing imaginable. The staging budget was about a £5. The song is 25 years out of date and feels like it was put together in half an hour, and the choreo is essentially non-existent. I love it. This is the kind of bizarre but oddly lovable mess that only San Marino can produce. And I honestly kind of prefer it when they do this to when they take the contest seriously. It has produced iconic moment after iconic moment over the past few years, and it is a beloved part of this ridiculous competition. I'm going to put this in A tier, and in doing so, I'm throwing away any remaining illusion you might have had that I'm being in any way objective. I'm doing this for two reasons. Firstly, that this is just silly and fun. Secondly, talking down Valentina Monetta is probably illegal. Give the Queen her flowers and let her participate in Eurovision as many times as she wants. We're going to 2022 again next in the form of Azerbaijan and Nadia Rustamli with his song Fade to Black.
And I'm now.
This song has a bizarre and truly unique distinction, qualifying for the final while getting an egg from the public. It is the only song in the 2016 to 2022 voting system to score 0 from either the jury or the televote and still manage to qualify. This scored 96 from the juries, which saw it go through comfortably, but the public hated it. In the final, they escaped that fate thanks to 3 points, all from Georgia. Drama can be a good thing and a bad thing in a Eurovision context. When it works, it adds a new level to the performance and it can produce a winner. 2025 is a perfect example of that. On the flip side, if the dramatics are a bit too over the top and if the song isn't strong enough to really support them, then you just end up looking a bit silly. I didn't think it at the time in 2022, but looking back at it now, it's just all a bit too much, and I struggle to take it seriously as a result. It's also a bit too start-stop for my liking. What can't be denied here is that Nadia is a great vocalist, and in particular, the gravelly side of his voice is really appealing. As a result, I do understand why this did so well with the jury and qualified for the final as a consequence. Overall, you have a mix of the impressive and the bizarre here, so I can't really put it any higher or lower than C tier. It was just a little too odd. The next song is 2019 and Austria. That was Penda with her song Limits.
Yeah, I'm talking about you.
This one took a 0 from the public in the semi-final and was essentially forgotten in the amidst of more impressive and more memorable packages from elsewhere. That said, I remember this having a fairly large contingent of fans on the Eurovision-related Tumblrs and Discord servers that I was frequenting back in 2019. As a result, I expected it to be in with a half chance of making it to the final. Looking back now, I am not hugely surprised where we've ended up. That's because her voice might appeal to some people, but to others, it was always going to come across as squeaky and shrill. As a result, it was not particularly realistic for this to get to the final. I can appreciate this, and at the very least, it definitely clears Mickey Mouse from Azerbaijan in the head-to-head of squeaky voices in this video. I might be alone in this, but there's a certain tenderness and strength that I can appreciate about this song. The staging was not interesting and the live performance was hardly groundbreaking, but when I listen to this, it actually makes me feel something. That puts it well ahead of most of what is on this list. For that reason, it's going to my B tier. I realize I am being generous in some cases, but please remember what I'm trying to work with here. It's Austria again next, this time from 2017. That was Nathan Trent with his song Running on Air.
Hey now, if you push me down, I'll get up again. again.
I don't know if my take is going to be popular here. I think most Eurovision fans have either forgotten this or don't look back on it fondly whatsoever. That said, I do, and not for any kind of musical reason. Let me explain. As I've mentioned previously, 2017 was my first Eurovision in person ever, and you can imagine the anticipation and excitement that came in the months leading up to it. For some reason, during that time, this was one of the songs that really stuck with me. I have these really fond memories of sitting in my room listening to this song and singing along to it. And I must have done that 50 or 100 times over those few months. This is not the kind of thing that I would go for usually, but now in my head, it encapsulates that carefree excitement that I had ahead of my very first Eurovision in person. That's a feeling that, especially in 2024 and 2025, I found myself wistfully looking back on. Because of that personal attachment, I hope you'll forgive me for putting it into A tier. Listening to it again for this video was a chance to reflect on some really amazing memories, and I'm glad that it's come up on this channel at some point, even if it had to be in the null point video. Next is Germany again, this time 2015 and Anne-Sophie with her song Black Smoke.
Cause you say you never let me go, and I said I care, but now we know that it's
As I've touched on in the past, even the German public didn't want this. Someone else won the national final, but they then unexpectedly refused on stage to go to the contest and accept their victory. I've previously been really critical of this as well, and my feelings, to be honest, have mostly stayed the same. I still think it's shouty, I still think it's overly derivative, and I still don't think it was interesting enough to deserve a better placement than last. That said, I did give it another chance for this video and found myself slightly more ambivalent to it than I was before. Maybe if I gaslight myself for a few more videos, I'll eventually like it, but for now, it still can't go any higher than C tier. That's where it's going to stay. We're finishing off with two songs from 2025. Firstly, the United Kingdom. Remember Monday with their song, What the Hell Just Happened.
what the hell just happened?
This is another one where being impartial is going to be difficult, because whenever I think of this, I think of the interview that I did with Remember Monday during Eurovision week, where literally everybody cried. They talked about being theatre kids hiding in the music rooms at school when they first started out. Without meaning to get too mushy about it, that was also me in high school. Sitting for hours playing Rosanna by Toto over and over again because I had to have it perfect on the drums for a music college audition that I was preparing for. The other song I had to play for that audition, by the way, was Strange Deja Vu by Dream Theater, which I suspect is slightly less well known. The 4 prog fans watching this video, or 5 if you include me, will probably be glad that it got a mention. My point is, and I am really getting mushy now, so I apologize, I have essentially just watched a group of people whose story and background I really identify with achieve something that I was also dreaming of at the exact same time in another music room in another high school somewhere else in the country. I initially didn't really get into this song, but as always seems to happen when you get a little too emotionally invested in the competition or one of the artists, I found myself feeling totally different now, and it's genuinely one of my favorites of the entire video. It might not be a favorite of many, but this did not deserve 0 from the public, and I'm glad that at the very least it got some jury love. It's going to be A tier for Remember Monday, and honestly, I am really proud that their efforts ended up with a top 10 finish in the jury. The final song of this video is Vibe from Iceland with their song Roa. While we're on the subject of emotional investment, we are closing this video with the only Eurovision artist that I've played Minecraft with, or been absolutely destroyed in a game of chess by. We also raised a bunch of money for Ukraine, and they proved that their Eurovision trivia skills weren't quite a match for the funny sunglasses men of 2024, that being Viismiinus from Estonia. In summary, it's going to be very difficult to be in any way objective when this was my reaction when they qualified for the final.
Iceland!
Let's be clear straight away, it's ridiculous that this song is in this video, and the 0 they got from the jury this year was totally undeserved. At the same time, if there was anyone who I would want to have the cult status of getting 0 from the juries in the final, it'd be these guys. I doubt that a jury point here or there would have dramatically altered their fate, because this song is picking up hundreds of thousands of streams anyway, and they're in the midst of planning a European tour. Objectively speaking, Yes, really. When you look to each element of this performance, it is one of the strongest in this video. It's fun, it's memorable, and there's a giant Minecraft volcano on the back wall. Seriously though, this showed that Vibe understood their audience and what voters they needed to appeal in order to maximize their score from the public. Roa finished 6th in the semi-final. It qualified with ease, and it was within spitting distance of Kai and Tommy Cash. That demonstrates just how well Vibe played their cards here. On a basic level as well, this is simply a good song, and those streaming numbers continue to demonstrate that. If I was using the Vibe trademark ranking system, I would award them 12 carrots, 45 Xbox 360s, Matti's driving license, and the power of friendship. Today though, I am working with the tier list system, so instead they're going to have to be satisfied with S tier. With that, we've now ranked every single null point of the century so far. Some things I was genuinely pleased to be reminded of, and I will be attempting to remove some of the others from my brain as quickly as possible. In return for my suffering, I would be very pleased if you'd like the video and subscribe to the channel since you've made it this far, because 50,000 subscribers is now very much coming into view. As well as that, there's going to be more videos coming all summer long because the off-season doesn't exist on this channel. That said, I am on holiday in Estonia next week, so there won't be a video for a fortnight. For now, thanks for watching as always, and I'll look forward to seeing you again very soon.